What is going on, basketball fans? Today we have my final NBA mock draft. We're doing a full first round here for you guys today. Before we get started, I just want to say subscribe if you guys are new. We got a ton of basketball, college basketball, NBA, college football content coming your way very soon. And yeah, guys, without further ado, let's get it started. So, with the first overall pick, we do have the Atlanta Hawks. Has been kind of an interesting situation with them winning the lottery. Got very lucky to get to this point. They are a team that is going to be looking to get back to the playoffs this year, and surrounding Trae Young and DeJounte Murray with some good players. Now, the popular pick for a while was Alex Sarr. He is, in my opinion, probably the best player in this draft, or the player with the most potential in this draft. And big rumor is, or kind of fact going around, Alex Sarr refused to work out with the Atlanta Hawks. So he does not want to go to Atlanta, which makes me believe they are not going to spend this first overall draft pick on him. Instead, they are going to go with a guy who is also honestly kind of worth the first overall pick. I mean, this is a draft class that it wouldn't surprise me if the Hawks took somebody that we really don't expect, but I would say right now, Zachary Rizache out of France, the small forward, is the pick at number 1 for the Atlanta Hawks. Zachary Rizache, he was projected to be, throughout this season, the number 1 pick throughout majority of this year, but kind of some three-point shooting slumps throughout the end of the year, throughout the playoffs that he played in, kind of, turned people off on him a little bit. But I still think he has a ton of potential. He's still super young, 6'8", lengthy, small forward, can fit in right there with the Hawks. And if they're not big on like a DeAndre Hunter or a Jalen Johnson going forward, I don't think it would be that dumb of them at all to pick up another wing for the future. You cannot be afraid to improve. I think Zachary Rizache definitely going to start for the Hawks, and it will be an improvement over one of those forwards. Next up, we have the Washington Wizards, and no-brainer, if Alex Sarr is on the board here for the Washington Wizards, they are going to select him. They need a rim protector. They need a franchise player. They need a center. Very, very bad. And this is going to open up so much for the Wizards offensively, defensively especially. To have an anchor like that on defense for the Wizards and have a true guy who is going to catch lobs, go in the pick and roll, set some off-ball screens, and a guy who has potential to shoot as well. I mean, come on. This is definitely the pick for the Wizards if he is available at number 2. Easy pick there. At number 3, we do have the Houston Rockets. This one gets a little bit interesting because, again, the Rockets have this pick from the Brooklyn Nets. So they didn't necessarily... They weren't a bad team. They broke even. They were like 41-41 this season in the NBA. They're looking to make the playoffs next year in a very stacked Western Conference. So they need some help, whether that's going to be off the bench, whether that's going to be a guy who can potentially come in and start. And I honestly like a few options for them. I was big on Rob Dillingham going to the Rockets as kind of like that six-man guy who can give you a ton of stuff off the bench, but also be the point guard of the future. A lot of people really do like Reed Shepherd for the Rockets for similar reasons, really. He's the best shooter in this draft class. That alone, especially as a six-man or a starting guard, that is going to be a huge help for your team, especially a team like the Rockets, to get that shooting. I think that makes a ton of sense. I am going to go with Reed Shepherd here for the Rockets. Best shooter in this draft class. You got to go out there and get him, and he has potential as a playmaker as well. Not a bad playmaker whatsoever, and yeah, I like Reed Shepherd here as just a bucket getter shooter for the Rockets to help them make a playoff push next year. Next up, we got the San Antonio Spurs, and this is an interesting one right here because they could go a few different directions. They could go Stephon Castle, which I think Greg Popovich would really like. Stephon Castle, defensive guy. He can play the 1 or the 2, but rumors are out there saying that he does not want to go to a team that wants to draft him as a shooting guard. he wants to go to a team who wants to draft him as a point guard. That could be the Spurs. He could be the future point guard of this San Antonio Spurs team. And he's a tall guard, a defensive guard. He can play make. He can drive, super athletic. The jump shot is the big question mark, but I think that he can work on that and improve on that for sure. I'm honestly between Rob Dillingham, Stephon Castle here for the Spurs. And, man, you could even think about going like a Buzelis would not be a bad pick, honestly, for the Spurs situation that they have right now. To get a wing like that, potential as a shooter, lengthy, athletic, not a bad pick here to think about possibly going with Buzelis. But I think they need a guard pretty bad, and for those reasons, I am actually going to go with Rob Dillingham. I think Rob Dillingham's super underrated. Does he necessarily have the defense? No, he's not a great defender, but neither is Reed Shepherd, who just went at pick 3. But he is a guy who can play make. He, I think, is one of the better scorers in this draft class, maybe the best scoring guard in this draft class, and one of the better shooters in this draft class as well. And he can play make. They need a point guard of the future. I think Rob Dillingham can be that. I like the Spurs going Dillingham here at number 4. Nikola Topic here was a popular pick there to go to the Spurs. Makes a lot of sense. But with his injury, the Spurs are honestly super close to competing like right now and trying to make the playoffs. Nikola Topic might not play his full rookie season, like with that ACL tear. That's a rough injury. It could take him a while. So Nikola Topic, he's going to fall. I don't think the Spurs are going to take that chance. I think they are ready to compete right now as soon as possible. Next up, we got the Detroit Pistons. The popular pick for them has been Matas Buzelis. I personally do not like that fit. I think the Pistons need shooting. 100%. Pistons need a shooting wing. And I know Matas Buzelis is a wing who projects to be as a good shooter, but he didn't shoot good last year, and I don't really trust it. He's athletic. He's got potential. I could see why they might take him, but honestly, I don't really like that pick. And this is what I'm talking about. I don't think teams should be afraid to try to get better. Because, yeah, they have a Jalen Duren at center, but I'm looking at Donovan Clingan, best player on the board, man. Best player on the board. He's going to give you everything Jalen Duren does and more, with more potential. He's a safe pick, 7'1", rim protector. I don't know, man. I think you might have to go with Donovan Clingan here. And Pistons fans are going to be like, why would you get another big? You have all these bigs on your team. You got James Wiseman now. You got Jalen Duren. You got all these bigs. It just doesn't make sense. And that's the only reason I'm not going to go with Donovan Clingan, even though he's the best player on the board. I just really do not like Matas Buzelis as a pick for the Pistons. I'm going to go back to a pick that I like for them, who I'm a lot higher on than this board. I think he is a top 7 to 5-ish prospect here in this draft class, and that is Cody Williams. I think he is a better shooter than Matas Buzelis. Very good wing. He's going to be able to play the small forward position for you, shoot the tray ball, play the baseline, play the dunker spot as a athletic wing as well, and just so much potential there. The younger brother of Jalen Williams there on the Thunder. I like that pick a lot. It's a pick that I have made before here in my mock drafts. Next up with the 6th pick, we do have the Charlotte Hornets. Now, I have been having them draft a shooting guard in the past, whether it's Stephon Castle or a Reed Shepherd. I think it makes a lot of sense here with LaMelo and Brandon Miller, but Stephon Castle does not want to go somewhere where he cannot just be the point guard. Now, if I'm the Hornets, would that shy me away from drafting him if he's really my guy, if I think that he is going to make a huge impact on this team? No. But with Donovan Clingan still on the board here at number 6, I think the Hornets take him. Yes, they do have Mark Williams. He has some potential there, but are you really going to pass up on a guy like Donovan Clingan for a guy like Mark Williams? I don't know. I just passed on him with the Pistons for Jalen Duren, and I just think Mark Williams, you got some potential, but you cannot be afraid to get better if you are these teams. And I think a lot of teams are afraid to get better, and that's why they're not getting better. And Donovan Clingan playing alongside LaMelo and Brandon Miller, you have your three for the future, man. You need to build off that. You need to go out there and get the best player available. If Clingan is there at 6, that is a steal, in my opinion. I think the Hornets go out and grab him. Next up, we do have the Portland Trail Blazers, and there's a guy on the board that I think makes a lot of sense, and that is Montas Buzelis. I think if he is on the board here at 7 for them, I've kind of picked either him or Cody Williams, whoever I didn't take for the Pistons. I think it makes a lot of sense. Athletic guy, he's going to be able to come in there and play right away there for the Blazers. I like the pick a lot. They need a wing. They don't need bigs, really. They don't need guards. Definitely do not need guards for the Trailblazers. They have way too many. They need some wings. Montas Buzelis, best player on the board there. Him or Stephon Castle. I think Stephon Castle is probably a better prospect, but they do not need guards. Next up, we do have the San Antonio Spurs. Once again, we took Rob Dillingham with our last pick, and now we're looking at this board. It's honestly, there's some interesting players that we could take here. I wouldn't even be opposed to taking a guy like a Jared McCain, who is, other than Reed Shepherd and Rob Dillingham, maybe one of the probably the best shooter in this class. He's probably going to be a little bit of an undersized shooting guard there at 6'2", though. Same with Devin Carter. I love Devin Carter. He's a hustler, rebounder. He can shoot like crazy, man. I think Devin Carter is going to go a lot higher than people expect. But the player that I think I am going to have the Spurs go with, even though I think Stephon Castle is the best player on the board, I just think drafting 2 guards, I think Ron Holland has a ton of potential as a wing. You need a wing for the Spurs team. I think you're building a future with Wemby, Ron Holland, Rob Dillingham. That's a solid future there in San Antonio. Give me Ron Holland there going 8 to the Spurs. Next up, we do have the Grizzlies. The big talk has been they need a center. They need a center. Donovan Clingan would be an awesome fit there. Well, he's not on the board, so where do you go now? You kind of still need a center, or do you kind of go with a guy like Devin Carter, who can play off the bench and give you some very valuable minutes, man, or give you a trade asset? I mean, you already have John Morant, Desmond Bane, Marcus Smart, 3 very, very good guards. You know, if you have another good guard coming off the bench in Devin Carter, who is kind of fits that Memphis mold, but also a very good shooter. He's going to be an amazing shooter for you guys. Or Stephon Castle. I mean, Stephon Castle still on the board at this point is outrageous. But do you really take Stephon Castle to come off the bench? I don't really think so. So this is an interesting spot here, Jazz. And I think that they go Stephon Castle here, man. I mean, they could go Topic. You could say maybe Topic has more potential, but with that knee injury, I'm not so sure. They do have some guards already. Colin Sexton. They just took the Baylor guard last year, Keontae George. Do they want to go with another guard here? I think, Topic makes a lot of sense. We know Danny Ainge likes, I think Topic here could make a lot of sense if you want like that true playmaking point guard. I think Stephon Castle fits more of a team that wants to win now. I'm going to go with Topic, even with his injury, if he has to sit out a year. I think that with his potential, I think the Jazz are going to like that. And even if he can't play year 1, his rookie year, because of his ACL tear, I think that they take a chance on him. And now we have the Bulls. And this is another tough one. I really do think someone is going to trade up for Stephon Castle because I'm very high on him, but he is sliding down this board. And if I'm the Bulls, do you take him off of pure potential? There's so many guards that have so much potential still here on the board, but you already have so many guards. Like Lonzo Ball is coming back. You traded Alex Caruso to the Thunder, but you got Kobe White. You got Io. Like, you have so many guards on this Bulls team. Do you really want to take another one, Stephon Castle, or do you want to take a more of a position of need because there are still some other players that do have some good potential? So this is an interesting pick for me. I'm going to have them take Stephon Castle just because I cannot have him fall down the board anymore. He has way too much potential. This guy is a winner. He's going to play whatever position you want, even though there's rumors out there he's only going to play point guard position. He's very versatile, offensively, defensively. I just honestly cannot have him slide down the board anymore. I got to have him go to the Bulls. Now, they could trade him with his value. They could. I think a team's going to trade up. By the time we get to the Grizzlies pick, if the Grizzlies don't want to take him because they already have, Marcus Smart, John Morant, Desmond Bane, that could be a trade down spot for them, and they could still probably pick up Dalton Knecht or another one of these wings down the board. But I have to have Stephon Castle go off just because he has way too much potential to slide any further in this draft. Next up with the OKC Thunder, I'm going to go with an interesting pick here. I'm going to go with Zach Edey, and I know what you guys are thinking. They have Chet Holmgren. Why would they need Zach Edey? Well, Chet Holmgren, he needs to put on a little bit of muscle. I think that you could honestly play Chet Holmgren and Zach Edey beside each other at some points, and Zach Edey could also be your backup because the thing is, Zach Edey is pro-ready. He's going to come in there and grab boards. OKC needs to grab rebounds, man. They are not a good rebounding team, and you could go with a guy like Jared McCain if you want more shooters off the bench, but they kind of have that, honestly. You could go with a guy like Devin Carter, who honestly makes a ton of sense because now that I'm thinking about it, Devin Carter averaged like 8-9 rebounds a game as a guard, and he can shoot the three ball. No, that's a great fit. That's too good of a fit, and I know they just traded for Caruso, traded Josh Giddey for Caruso, but Devin Carter makes way too much sense here for the Thunder to not end up with him if he is on the board. So as much as I would like to see Zach Edey come in there and play the 5, grab some boards, and Chet play the 4 who can stretch the floor, I am going to go with Stephon Castle there. Or not Stephon Castle, Devin Carter there, because he is a very good rebounding guard who can come off the bench, shoot a bunch of threes, make them, and rebound for you as well. He is going to help in that department. Also, next up, we do have the Sacramento Kings. And Sacramento, interesting, they just re-signed Malik Monk. They are a team that is looking to get back into the midst of, winning games, back in the playoffs, things of that nature. I think, Tajon Salon right here makes kind of a lot of sense here. A lot of guards on the board here. But he's a stretch 4, which definitely could help this team a lot. This team doesn't necessarily need guards because you have De'Aaron Fox, you have Malik Monk, Kevin Huerter, question mark there. So I could actually see them possibly taking the guard here. Jared McCain makes a lot of sense as a shooter to replace Kevin Huerter. I've mocked that a couple of times, and I think I'm going to mock that again. I think it just makes too much sense here. It's just a really good fit to have Jared McCain come in there and play the shooting guard position next to De'Aaron Fox to stretch the floor. Next up, we do have the Trailblazers. Once again, they went ahead and took Montez Buzelis with their last pick. Let's get a guy who's got maybe a little bit more solidified shooting in Tajon Salon. This is a guy. Ooh, you could go Zach Edey here, man. Zach Edey in Portland. That could be fun. Or do you kind of go with a guy like Tajon Salon, who would be like a Jeremy Grant-esque player, stretch 4, as kind of his replacement? I think I might end up going with Zach Edey here. I'm going to go with Zach Edey here to the Trailblazers. I think this actually makes a lot of sense, you know. DeAndre Ayton, kind of a question mark, you know, going forward. You want to get a center. I think, you know, Zach, you guys know I've made videos talking about Zach Edey and how I'm pretty high on him in the NBA. I don't think he's going to be, you know, a liability on defense like a lot of you guys do. I think, you know, at worst, he's going to be like a Rudy Gobert, where he gets switched onto the guard and he just looks goofy. But I could see situations like that. But look at Rudy Gobert, man. He is, you know, killing it. Defensive Player of the Year again. Helping the Timberwolves get to the conference finals. I think Zach Edey's got potential. Next up, we do have the Miami Heat. And honestly, Tajon Salon sitting there at the power forward position, he would be a great power forward to stretch the floor right there next to Bam Adebayo. Makes a lot of sense. That's a Heat pick right there. And he's going to turn into a beast on the Heat. And I know they had Jaime Jaquez to play the 3. Now you got Tajon Salon to play the 4 there. Makes a lot of sense to me. Next up, we got 76ers. And with them on the board, they kind of want to... They need someone to get better. Like, they have Joel Embiid. They got Tyrese Maxey. Everything else is kind of a question mark here. So they need their next big player that's going to help them, you know, take that next step. And I like Tristan da Silva, honestly, as a wing to kind of stretch the floor and also be a scorer there. I think that he has potential. I also really like Khalil Ware to possibly play that power forward position and stretch the floor. I think he's got potential. I'm higher on him than some people. There's a lot of different options that you could really go with here if you are the 76ers. Jacoby Walter, possibly the best player on the board. But I think I am going to have them go with... Honestly, they could go Johnny Furphy for the shooting. I like Tristan da Silva as kind of like a pure scorer for them on the wing. Give me Tristan da Silva. 6'8". Yeah, I like that there for the Sixers. Next up, we do have the Los Angeles Lakers. And, man, they need a few things. Like, they need... some better bench play. They could honestly go with a younger guard as kind of a replacement for D'Angelo Russell, which I don't necessarily hate the idea of that. You could go with a center, because I think they need a center to play alongside Anthony Davis so they can move AD back to the 4, but there's not really that great of a center on the board. I honestly think if they drafted a Zach Edey, that would be almost like the perfect fit for this Lakers team. But, man, this is a tough pick here if you are the Lakers. I don't think there's any centers on the board, so I think you have to go with someone who can come off the bench and score the ball, shoot the ball, which is tough here. I think Johnny Furphy or Jacoby Walter could make a lot of sense. I am going to have them go with Jacoby Walter. I think that he has the most potential of the players who are available at this point. He can come in as a shooting guard. I know that they do have Austin Reeves, but he is a guy who can come off the bench and provide a little bit of shooting, a little bit of scoring there for the Lakers. So give me Jacoby Walter to the Los Angeles Lakers. Next up, we do have the Orlando Magic, and they definitely are a team that needs some shooting. And I could see them going a few different directions. Like a Khalil Ware at the center spot would be pretty cool. You know, put him next to Paulo. He can stretch the floor. They need that shooting. I kind of like that, man. I kind of like that Khalil Ware to the Magic. Or you could go with a guy like Terrence Shannon Jr., Baylor Shireman down the board. This may be like a little bit of a reach, but I like Baylor Shireman. I don't think he's supposed to go top 20, but I watched Baylor Shireman in college. He is a pure shooter, man. And honestly, I think he's a better player than Johnny Furphy. And Johnny Furphy is projected to go around this area. I would rather have Baylor Shireman. Give me Shireman here to go to the Orlando Magic and help them knock down some tray balls next season and help them improve even further off their 5 seed appearance in the playoffs this past year. Next up, we got the Toronto Raptors, and they could use a couple different things here, man. They're looking for some young talent that got some potential, and there's a guy that I'm eyeing up already, and that is Isaiah Collier. I think that Isaiah Collier has a lot more potential than a lot of people are giving him credit for. Number 1 recruit coming out of high school, super good. He had a good year at USC. Not sure why a lot of people are sliding him down the board. I mean, he's even going here with my 19th pick, which is pretty far down the board. But for the Raptors, who just need some potential guys, that's a solid pick at that point in the draft. Next up, we do have the Cleveland Cavaliers, and it's seeming like they're either going to lose Darius Garland or Donovan Mitchell this offseason. For the Cavs' sake, I'm hoping that they keep Donovan Mitchell. I mean, he is so good. To move on from that would be just silly. So at this point, you're looking for a point guard. I think, honestly, Bub Carrington could step in right to that Darius Garland role and probably play it pretty good. So I'm kind of looking like that could be the pick, or you could go with a wing scorer off the bench in Johnny Furphy. But if you're going to lose Darius Garland, give me Carlton, Bub Carrington. Dropped a couple triple-doubles this year at Pitt. Only a freshman. Super high potential. Down the board at number 20. You can't be mad at that pick if you are the Cleveland Cavaliers. Next up, we do have the Pelicans picking next. And Pelicans, Brandon Ingram, people don't talk about how horribly he played in the playoffs. I mean, he was really stinking it up. The Pelicans could use a couple of different things. They got Dyson Daniels, who's got some potential, but is he going to be your guy at point guard? Do you go ahead and take a shot at another guard? Trey Murphy is looking like your small forward as the future, not Brandon Ingram. And then you got Zion. You might lose Jonas Valanciunas as well. I'm going to go with a guy like Khalil Ware. Slid down my board a little bit from where I think his potential is. I have him as probably a top 15 guy, close to a lottery guy. I really like Khalil Ware. To get him here at 21, a guy who can stretch the floor as a center to play next to Zion at the 4, I think that is an awesome pick there for the Pelicans and a great fit. So give me Khalil Ware there to go to New Orleans. Next up, we do have... who do we have here? The Phoenix Suns. A popular pick here has been Tyler Kolek because they need a point guard. No more point guard Devin Booker. I think that makes a lot of sense. I don't think that is the role he should be playing. So to draft Tyler Kolek does kind of make a lot of sense because they're not going to have a lot of cap space to be able to pick up a point guard in free agency. So I am going to go ahead and kind of tail that pick that I've been seeing. I think I've made this in my last mock draft as well. Tyler Kolek here, one of the best playmakers in the draft class, heading to Phoenix to playmake for Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and company down there in Phoenix. Next up, we do got... who do we got here? The Milwaukee Bucks here picking, and honestly, they could go a few different directions. They probably need to upgrade at center, but kind of the shooting centers have been off the board with Khalil Ware. If Khalil Ware fell here, that would be perfect to play next to Giannis, as is he is perfect to play with Zion there with the Pelicans. I don't like Missy there, just too much clog in the paint. He's not going to be able to shoot. Cal Filipowski, I don't think he's that good, to be honest. So if there's no centers on the board here, where do you go if you are the Bucks? I say you need a guy who can come off the bench and probably give you some buckets. I think Johnny Furphy as a shooter could make a lot of sense here for the Milwaukee Bucks. Give me Johnny Furphy to go 23. Next up, we do have the New York Knicks. And the Knicks are an interesting spot. Had a pretty good season, especially without Julius Randle there in the playoffs. I think that they're going to bring Isaiah Hartenstein back in free agency. If not, then I would say they draft Missy. I'm actually going to have them draft a guy who has played in Madison Square Garden a couple times in college and a few mini tournaments throughout the season, and that is Terrence Shannon Jr. He was going off in Madison Square Garden, not just this year, but last year as well for Illinois. And to get him, a guy who can play defense as a wing, shoot the tray ball, and score, I think that is going to be a great fit there for the Knicks. So give me Terrence Shannon Jr. And FYI, he did win his case. He is no longer under investigation for all those sexual assault charges that he did have. So that shouldn't be anything holding him back for his draft stock as well. Next up, we do have the Knicks again, back-to-back picks. Do you want to go with another defensive guy in like Ryan Dunn, Kyle Filipowski? You could draft him for the value, but I'm not high on Kyle Filipowski, and I wouldn't be mad if he doesn't go in this whole first round. I just don't think he's going to translate well to the NBA. And honestly, down the board, you got Kevin McCullough, but then again, you just took a wing in Terrence Shannon Jr., so do you really want to draft a Kevin McCullough there? I'm going to go with Deron Holmes, a guy who's going to kind of play a similar role to like a Julius Randle, honestly, in the NBA, and had an amazing season for Dayton this year. I think he can come in and give you some production off the bench, or at least be a future piece for you if you are the New York Knicks there. So I like that pick a lot there. If you're using those two picks and you're the Knicks, can't go wrong with those two. Pretty solid value down here at the end of the first round. Then you got the Wizards again. Took Alex Sarr with their second overall pick, and now they're kind of looking at what player can give us some value at this point in the draft. I'm looking at Tyler Smith from G League Ignite, a stretch forward who can give you some defense. I'm looking at Jalen Tyson, who can give you some shooting as the guard. Man, interesting picks here. I think I'm actually going to go with a guy in Kevin McCullough. I think maybe the best player available at the draft right now, down here at 38 on ESPN's board. I would say he's probably the best player available, in my opinion, at this point in the draft. And the Wizards kind of need that best player available right now, so I am going to have him go there. Next up, we do have the Minnesota Timberwolves coming off conference finals appearance. They're going to look to improve. They need some guards. They need some shooting. Jalen Tyson right there, honestly, boom, makes a lot of sense. A guy who can give you some three-point shooting for sure. So next up, we do have the Denver Nuggets. Denver Nuggets could go a couple different directions here. I don't really like Kyle Filipowski a lot, but he does kind of make sense for the Nuggets to kind of come off the bench as that backup power forward who can kind of play that dunker spot well with Aaron Gordon. He's not going to play as good as defense as Aaron Gordon, so you could go that direction, or you kind of could go with kind of like a backup scorer, like a Ryan Dunn who's going to give you some defense. I don't hate that either. I'm going to give him Kyle Filipowski. I feel like, the Nuggets kind of need a backup big. So as much as I don't think he's going to be that great in the NBA, if he does have a chance, it's going to be with the Nuggets. They're going to get him right down there, a winning culture right now. Then we got the Utah Jazz again. They took Nikola Topic with their first pick, and they're looking for some potential here. And there is a guy that I think has a ton of potential out of Weber State, and he is a little bit down the board here, but that is Dylan Jones. Dylan Jones, ton of potential. He was the leading scorer in every single statistical category for his team at Weber State last year. I think a ton of potential here, and that is what the Jazz need, so they get them a small forward that can do it all. Next up, we do have the Boston Celtics with the final pick of the first round and the final pick of this mock draft. They just won the NBA championship. What are they going to be looking to do here? And honestly, I think best player available, you go with Missy right here. A guy who can't shoot as a center, but a guy who can definitely come in off the bench, which the Celtics had like Luke Cornett coming out there whenever it was Porzy. How long does Al Horford have? You know, he's not going to be able to stretch the floor like those guys, but he could definitely come in and take Luke Cornett's spot here on the Celtics team. Not horrible value here for the 30th pick. He does have some potential, but not potential as a shooter. But that is going to do it for this mock draft, full first round for you guys. Let me know what you guys think about my picks. What picks do you agree with? What picks do you like? Which picks do you don't like? Let me know all of that down below in the comment section. Make sure you guys subscribe for more basketball content. We got a ton of stuff coming your way. And yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching.